Captain Zara Okafor stood at the observation deck of the starship Endeavour, watching the massive space station grow larger in the view screen. Nexus Prime was unlike anything humanity had ever built. The station stretched for hundreds of miles in all directions, its silver hull gleaming under the light of 3 different stars. Ships from dozens of alien species moved in perfect formation around the station, their designs strange and beautiful. "First time seeing the Council station?" asked Commander Sarah Thompson, joining Zara at the window. "Yes," Zara replied, unable to hide her wonder. "Hard to believe we finally made it here. After 50 years of struggling to develop faster-than-light travel, humanity had finally achieved what seemed impossible. The breakthrough came from Dr. Elena Vasquez and her team, who discovered how to fold space using exotic matter. Now, just 2 years later, Earth's first diplomatic mission was approaching the heart of galactic civilization. The communications officer turned from his station. "Captain, we're receiving docking instructions from Nexus Prime Traffic Control." "Follow their guidance," Zara ordered. "Let's make a good first impression." The Endeavour moved slowly toward the docking bay. Through the transparent aluminum windows, Zara could see other vessels from across the galaxy. Some ships looked like living creatures, all curves and organic shapes. Others were geometric puzzles of metal and crystal. A few glowed with energy that made the air shimmer around them. "The Dominion Empire really controls all of this?" Thompson asked. "According to our intelligence, they've kept peace in this galaxy for over 1,000 years. Zara replied. "No major wars, no planet-destroying conflicts. They must be doing something right." The docking process took several hours. When it was complete, Zara led a small team through the airlock and into the station proper. The corridor beyond was enormous, with ceilings that stretched up into shadows. The walls were covered in symbols from hundreds of different languages and writing systems. An alien waited for them at the end of the corridor. It stood nearly 8 feet tall, with gray skin that seemed to shift and change texture as Zara watched. 4 arms extended from its torso, and its head was elongated, with large dark eyes that reflected intelligence. "Welcome, humans of Earth," the being said in perfect English, though its voice had an odd musical quality. "I am Coordinator Vextha of the Dominion Empire. We have been expecting you." Zara stepped forward and offered the traditional human handshake, though she wasn't sure if the gesture would translate. Vextha observed the extended hand for a moment, then reached out with one of its 4 arms to grasp her hand gently. "Thank you for receiving us, Coordinator," Zara said. "I'm Captain Zara Okafor, representing Earth and humanity. We're honored to be here." "The honor is ours," Vextha replied. "It has been nearly 200 years since a new species achieved faster-than-light travel. Your accomplishment is notable." Vextha led them through the station's corridors. The place was a maze of different architectural styles, as if dozens of civilizations had contributed to its construction over the centuries. They passed beings that looked like walking trees, creatures made of what appeared to be living crystal, and others that seemed to be pure energy contained in metallic suits. "Your station is incredible," Zara commented as they walked. "How many species are represented here?" "The current Galactic Council consists of 47 member species," Vextha explained. "Each contributes according to their abilities and receives according to their needs. It is a system that has brought prosperity and peace to our galaxy for over 1,000 years." They entered a vast chamber with a domed ceiling that showed the stars outside. Representatives from dozens of species sat in circular rows, facing a central platform where Vextha led the human delegation. The chamber fell silent as they approached. "Honored members of the Council," Vextha announced, its voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "I present the delegation from Earth, 3rd planet of the Sol system. They have achieved faster-than-light travel and seek membership in our galactic community." A murmur of interest rippled through the assembled delegates. Zara had studied as much as she could about galactic politics, but seeing so many alien species in one place was overwhelming. Vextha gestured for Zara to step forward. "Please, Captain Okafor, tell the Council about your species and your intentions." Zara took a deep breath and addressed the assembly. "Members of the Galactic Council, I speak for humanity and our homeworld of Earth. We are a young species still learning about the universe around us. We've achieved faster-than-light travel through determination and cooperation. We seek to join the galactic community as equals, to share knowledge and contribute to the peace you've maintained for so long." The response was immediate. Several delegates began speaking at once in languages Zara couldn't understand. The translation device she wore converted some of the words, but the general tone seemed concerned. Vextha raised all four arms for silence. The Council appreciates your directness, Captain. However, full membership in the galactic community requires certain preparations. New species rarely understand the complexities of interstellar civilization. A delegate that looked like a cross between a spider and a butterfly leaned forward. Its translator made its voice sound like wind chimes. The human species shows promise, but they are clearly primitive. Look at their ship construction, their energy systems. They would benefit greatly from guidance. Another delegate, this one resembling a living statue made of black stone, added its opinion. Their population growth is uncontrolled. Their resource consumption patterns are unsustainable. They require careful management to prevent ecological collapse. Zara felt a chill run down her spine. I'm sorry, but what exactly are you suggesting? Vextha's expression remained neutral, but something in its large eyes seemed almost pitying. The Dominion Empire offers protectorate status to developing species like yours. Earth would be placed under the guidance of experienced civilizations who can help manage your transition to galactic citizenship. Your resources would be administered efficiently, your population relocated to suitable worlds where they can thrive without damaging fragile ecosystems. Relocated? Thompson stepped forward, her voice tight with controlled anger. You're talking about moving people off Earth? Only as necessary, Vextha replied calmly. Earth is valuable for its biodiversity and mineral resources. The human population could be much more comfortable on worlds designed specifically for their needs. The transition would take place gradually over several generations. Zara felt her stomach drop as she began to understand what was really being offered. And if we refuse this, guidance? The chamber became very quiet. Vextha tilted its elongated head slightly. Refusal is uncommon. Species that achieve faster-than-light travel are typically eager to join galactic civilization. Those few who have initially hesitated have always seen the wisdom of cooperation after a period of economic adjustment. Economic adjustment? Trade restrictions, resource allocation modifications, technological access limitations. Nothing hostile, of course. The Empire has maintained galactic peace for over a millennium, precisely because we avoid crude methods like warfare. Economic pressure is much more civilized. Zara looked around the chamber at the assembled delegates. She saw no hostility in their alien faces, but she also saw no doubt. They genuinely believed they were offering humanity a generous deal. I need to return to Earth and discuss this with our leaders, Zara said finally. Of course, Vextha replied. You have 7 days to consider our offer. However, I should mention that Dominion merchant vessels are already establishing trade positions in your solar system. Standard procedure for species under consideration. You'll find them quite helpful in facilitating future negotiations. As they left the chamber, Thompson walked close to Zara. Captain, those weren't merchant ships we detected on our way in. Those were warships. Zara nodded grimly. She had recognized them too, despite their civilian markings. The Empire's offer of protection was backed by an implicit threat. Back aboard the Endeavor, Zara sat in her ready room staring at the communication device that would carry her message back to Earth. How do you tell an entire planet that their first contact with alien civilization had revealed they were already conquered? They just didn't know it yet. She began recording her message, choosing her words carefully. Earth needed to know that the galaxy's 1,000 years of peace came at a price humanity might not be willing to pay. Dr. Elena Vasquez was working late in her laboratory when the first explosions lit up the night sky over Mexico City. She looked up from her computer screen, confused by the bright flashes that seemed to come from high in the atmosphere. Then the building shook and she knew this wasn't lightning. Her communication device buzzed with an emergency message from Earth Defense Command. The words made her blood turn cold. Multiple alien vessels detected in Earth orbit. Orbital bombardment has begun. This is not a drill. Elena ran to the windows of her lab on the 40th floor. In the distance, she could see fires spreading across the city. Strange lights moved through the sky, too precise and purposeful to be meteors. As she watched, one of the lights descended toward the financial district. A moment later, a column of white fire erupted where the buildings had been. Across the Pacific Ocean, Master Sergeant James Chen was leading a training exercise at the Australian military base when the attack began. His squad was practicing urban combat scenarios when their radios crackled with reports of ships appearing in orbit, without warning. "Sergeant, look up," shouted Private Martinez, pointing at the sky. Chen tilted his head back and saw something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Dozens of sleek silver ships hung in the air above Sydney like deadly ornaments. They were beautiful in their own way, all smooth curves and flowing lines. They also completely ignored every physical law Chen thought he understood about flight and gravity. The ships began firing. The weapons they used weren't like anything from human science fiction movies. There were no dramatic explosions or visible beams of light. Instead, buildings simply stopped existing. One moment the Sydney Opera House was there, the next moment there was empty space and a small crater where it used to be. "Fall back to bunkers," Chen ordered his squad, but he knew it wouldn't matter. These aliens weren't interested in fighting soldiers. They were erasing cities. Commander Sarah Thompson was aboard the submarine Defiance 50 miles off the coast of California when the Pacific Fleet disappeared. Her sonar operator called out contact after contact as surface ships began exploding above them, but there was something wrong with the readings. "Commander, I'm not detecting any enemy vessels," the sonar operator reported, his voice confused and frightened. "The fleet is just dying." Thompson ordered the submarine to periscope depth despite the danger. What she saw through the scope made no sense. The entire Pacific Fleet was burning or sinking, but the sky above appeared empty except for what looked like heat distortions in the air. "They're using some kind of cloaking technology," she realized. "We can't see them, but they're there." The attack lasted exactly 6 hours. When it was over, every major city on Earth had been hit. Military bases were gone. Communication networks were destroyed. Transportation hubs had been erased. But the damage was surgical, precise. The aliens had destroyed humanity's ability to fight back while leaving most of the planet's infrastructure and population intact. The death toll was 3 billion people. Fleet Admiral Korvash observed the operation from his flagship, the Eternal Harmony, watching the data streams from his fleet's targeting systems. The human homeworld had been pacified with minimal collateral damage to valuable resources. The primitive species had lost approximately 30% of their population. Enough to break their will to resist, but not enough to damage the planet's long-term productivity. "Excellent precision," Admiral, reported his tactical officer, a member of the crystalline Shadari species whose mathematical minds made them perfect for calculating optimal bombardment patterns. "Resistance capability has been reduced by 97%. Human industrial capacity is damaged but repairable. Ecological damage is within acceptable parameters." Korvash nodded with satisfaction. This was how civilized species conducted military operations. Quick, efficient, and designed to minimize long-term economic disruption. The humans would surrender within days, as all primitive species did when faced with the overwhelming superiority of Dominion technology. "Open a communication channel to the planet's surface," Korvash ordered. "It's time to offer them terms of surrender." The response came 6 hours later from a badly damaged military facility in what had been the North American continent. Admiral Korvash expected to receive a formal surrender document, perhaps with some request for humanitarian aid during the transition period. Instead, he received a transmission that made him question whether the translation systems were working properly. The human female who appeared on the screen had short dark hair and eyes that seemed to burn with an intensity Korvash had never seen before. She wore the uniform of their primitive military, but what caught his attention was the expression on her face. It wasn't defeat or despair. It was something much more dangerous. "I am Admiral Zara Okafor speaking for the United Earth Defense Force," she began. Her voice was steady, controlled, but there was something underneath it that made Korvash uncomfortable. "You have attacked our world without warning. You have murdered 3 billion innocent people. You expected us to surrender." Korvash leaned forward, curious about where this was going. Surely the primitive didn't think they could negotiate from a position of weakness. "Instead," Okafor continued, "you have declared war on humanity. We accept." The screen flickered and other faces appeared alongside the human admiral. A woman in a scientist's coat standing among the ruins of a burning city. A soldier covered in dust and blood, his eyes reflecting the same burning intensity as the admiral. A submarine commander speaking from what appeared to be an underwater vessel. "We are not your subjects," Okafor said. "We are not your protectorate. We are your enemy." And we will not stop until every ship in your fleet is destroyed, and every world you control burns to ash. Corvash was so surprised that he almost laughed. You cannot be serious. You have no fleet. Your military has been eliminated. Your industrial base is crippled. You're right, Okafor replied. You've taken away our ability to fight a civilized war. So we'll fight an uncivilized one. The transmission ended. Corvash stared at the blank screen for several minutes, trying to process what he had just heard. In over 800 years of service with the Dominion fleet, he had never encountered a species that responded to occupation with a declaration of war. It simply didn't happen. Primitive species surrendered when faced with superior technology. That was how the galaxy worked. Admiral, his communications officer, called out, "We're receiving thousands of transmissions from the planet's surface. They appear to be recruitment messages?" Corvash had the messages played through the bridge speakers. Human voices speaking in dozens of different languages but all carrying the same basic message. The aliens had made a mistake. They had killed humans, and humans didn't forgive. Every person who could hold a weapon, pilot a ship, or build a bomb was called to service. The war was just beginning. "Sir," the tactical officer reported, "sensors are detecting massive industrial activity across the planet. They appear to be converting civilian factories into weapons production facilities." "That's impossible," Corvash replied. Their infrastructure was specifically targeted to prevent exactly that kind of response. But the reports kept coming in. Humans were stripping metals from destroyed buildings to build weapons. They were converting automobiles into mobile weapons platforms. They were teaching children to make explosives from household chemicals. Most disturbing of all, they were building ships. The vessels emerging from hidden construction facilities weren't like anything in the Dominion database. They were crude, ugly things that looked like they had been hammered together from scrap metal. But they were also fast, heavily armed, and operated by crews that seemed to have no interest in their own survival. The first wave of human ships launched 3 weeks after the bombardment. 60 vessels, none larger than a Dominion scout ship, accelerated toward Corvash's fleet at speeds that should have killed their crews from gravitational stress. "They're on a collision course," the tactical officer reported. "They're not even trying to engage us. They're just ramming." Corvash watched in fascination as the primitive ships crashed into his vessels, detonating nuclear warheads in what were obviously suicide attacks. The damage was minimal to ships designed to withstand proper military weapons, but the psychological effect was significant. These humans weren't trying to win a military victory. They were trying to send a message: "We will die before we submit." "Admiral," his communications officer called out, "High Command wants to know why the humans haven't surrendered yet. The operation was supposed to be completed by now." Corvash looked at the tactical display showing dozens more human ships launching from the planet's surface, each one crewed by beings who had already decided to die for their cause. "Tell High Command," he said slowly, "that we may have made an error in our calculations. These humans, they don't fight like civilized species." On Earth's surface, Admiral Okafor stood in the ruins of what had been the Pentagon, coordinating humanity's response through a network of hidden communication relays. The aliens had destroyed Earth's major cities, but they had also done something else. They had shown humanity exactly what they were capable of losing, and humanity had decided that if they were going to lose everything anyway, the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter had become humanity's secret weapon factory. Dr. Elena Vasquez floated in the zero gravity of mining station Echo 7, watching robotic systems assemble ships faster than she had ever thought possible. The station had been a simple mining operation before the war. Now it was one of dozens of hidden facilities producing what Earth's military had started calling locust ships. "How many can we build per day now?" asked General Marcus Torres, who had arrived on a fast courier ship to inspect their progress. 200, Elena replied, pulling up holographic displays showing production numbers. "Each one can carry a crew of 12 and enough nuclear warheads to take out a Dominion cruiser." The ships were ugly things, built for speed and destruction rather than comfort or survival. They had no life support systems beyond basic oxygen recyclers, no artificial gravity, no shields or armor to speak of. But they were fast, cheap to build, and operated by crews who had volunteered for one-way missions. "The Empire's ships are still superior in every way," Elena continued, "but they can't be everywhere at once. When 1,000 of our ships attack one of theirs, numbers start to matter. Torres nodded grimly. He had been a logistics officer before the war, responsible for moving supplies efficiently. Now he was applying the same principles to moving instruments of death across space. What about the new weapon systems? Elena's expression darkened. Before the war, she had been a peaceful scientist working on clean energy and space exploration. The attack on Earth had changed her in ways she was still discovering. The memory virus is ready for deployment. Any Dominion crew member who comes into contact with it will experience the death of every human they've killed, over and over again. That's... Torres paused, looking uncomfortable. That's a war crime by any standard we've ever used. They committed war crimes when they murdered 3 billion civilians, Elena replied coldly. Besides, war crimes only apply when both sides agree on the rules. The Empire destroyed our cities without warning. They don't get to complain about our methods now. Across the galaxy, Master Sergeant James Chen was leading humanity's first ground assault on an alien world. The planet Kethavara had been chosen specifically because it was a major administrative center for the Empire, home to billions of alien civilians who managed trade routes and taxation systems. Chen's forces had arrived in converted cargo ships that looked nothing like military vessels until they opened their weapon pods. The Dominion garrison had been expecting a traditional siege followed by negotiations. Instead, they got something that hadn't been seen in the galaxy for over 1,000 years. Total war. Remember the rules, Chen told his troops as they prepared to deploy from orbit. No prisoners. No negotiations, no mercy. They showed us what they think of civilian populations. Time to return the favor. The assault began with orbital bombardment from human ships that specifically targeted hospitals, schools, and residential areas. The Empire's military doctrine called for protecting civilian infrastructure during conflicts. Humans had abandoned that doctrine the moment the first bomb fell on Mexico City. Chen led the ground forces personally, moving through the alien city with weapons that had been designed by humans who no longer cared about surgical precision. They used weapons that caused maximum pain before death. They destroyed water purification systems and food distribution centers. They made sure that anyone who survived would remember what happened when you attacked Earth. The worst part was how easy it was. The Empire's security forces weren't prepared to fight an enemy that treated their own lives as expendable. When human soldiers ran out of ammunition, they used suicide vests. When they were cornered, they set off demolition charges that brought down entire buildings. "Sergeant," one of his soldiers called out over the radio, "we've got alien civilians trying to surrender. What are your orders?" Chen looked through his rifle scope at a group of Keithvaran families huddled in what had been a shopping center. They had 4 arms each and skin that changed color with their emotions. Right now they were all showing the pale blue that his briefings had told him meant terror. "No prisoners," he replied. "They didn't take any on Earth." Meanwhile, Commander Sarah Thompson had taken the submarine Defiance far beyond Earth's oceans. The vessel had been converted for space operations, fitted with nuclear torpedoes and stealth systems that made it nearly invisible to Dominion sensors. She was hunting Empire supply convoys in deep space, attacking merchant vessels that carried food and medical supplies to frontier worlds. "Target acquired," reported her weapons officer. "Dominion cargo ship, probably carrying medical supplies for their colony on Vega 7. Thompson studied the target through her scope. It was a beautiful ship, all flowing lines and graceful curves, the kind of vessel that had been designed by a civilization that valued art as much as function. In a few minutes it would be debris floating in space. "Fire," she ordered. The torpedo struck the cargo ship's engine section, causing a chain reaction that destroyed the vessel in seconds. Thompson felt nothing as she watched the explosion. Before the war, she would have been horrified at destroying a medical supply ship. Now she understood that everything supporting the Empire was a legitimate target. "Commander," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving a distress call from the colony on Vega 7. They're reporting disease outbreaks and requesting emergency medical assistance." "Not our problem," Thompson replied. "Plot a course for the next convoy route. We have work to do." The psychological effects of humanity's new warfare doctrine were spreading through the Empire faster than the physical damage. Species that had lived in peace for centuries were suddenly faced with an enemy that didn't follow any rules. They understood High Coordinator. Vextha called an emergency session of the Galactic Council to address what the Empire was now calling the human problem. Representatives, from 47 species gathered in the Great Chamber aboard Nexus Prime. But this time the atmosphere was very different from humanity's first diplomatic visit. The situation is unprecedented, Vextha told the Assembly. In 6 months of conflict, the humans have killed over 2 billion Imperial citizens. They target civilians deliberately. They refuse to accept surrender. They treat their own lives as expendable resources. A delegate from the crystalline houses spoke first, its translated voice carrying harmonics of fear. Our border worlds are abandoning their positions. Entire populations are fleeing toward the core systems. The economic disruption is becoming critical. The representative of the ethereal collective added its concerns. Our psychic networks are being contaminated by human emotions. Their rage is infectious. It spreads to our own people, making them question the foundations of our peaceful society. Vextha nodded gravely. The Empire had been built on the principle that all rational beings would prefer peace and prosperity to warfare and destruction. The humans were proving that some species might not be rational by galactic standards. What about negotiating? Asked the delegate from the Void Swimmers. Surely they can be reasoned with. We've tried, Vextha replied. Every attempt at communication is answered with the same message: total surrender of the Empire or total destruction of the human species. They seem to prefer mutual annihilation to any form of compromise. Fleet. Admiral Corvash had been summoned to explain how his quick pacification mission had turned into the galaxy's first total war in over a millennium. He stood before the council, his confidence shaken by months of fighting an enemy that refused to behave according to established military doctrine. The humans don't fight like civilized species, he reported. They use suicide tactics. They target non-military infrastructure. They've weaponized diseases and psychological warfare. Most disturbing of all, they seem to be getting stronger instead of weaker as the conflict continues. How is that possible? Demanded the representative of the Metal Brotherhood. Their industrial base was crippled in the initial attack. They've adapted, Corvash admitted reluctantly. They're building weapons from materials we considered worthless. They're training soldiers faster than we can kill them, and they're learning from every engagement, while we're struggling to understand their tactics at all. The truth was even worse than Corvash admitted to the council. The Empire's military had been designed to maintain order and suppress rebellion, not to fight a total war against an enemy that treated death as an acceptable price for victory. Dominion ships were sophisticated, expensive, and crewed by beings who expected to survive their military service. Human ships were crude, cheap, and operated by fanatics who measured success by how much damage they could inflict before dying. The mathematics were simple and terrifying. Humanity could afford to lose ships and crews at a rate that would bankrupt any civilized species. What do you recommend? Vextha asked. Corvash looked around the chamber at representatives of species that had enjoyed peace and prosperity for longer than human civilization had existed. They were about to learn that some things were more expensive than war. Full mobilization, he said quietly. Every ship, every world, every resource the Empire can bring to bear. Because if we don't stop them soon, the humans won't just defeat us. They'll destroy the very concept of civilized society in this galaxy. 2 years after the first attack on Earth, humanity had evolved from desperate survivors into something the galaxy had never seen before. A species that made war into an art form. General Marcus Torres stood in the command center of Asteroid Base Omega, studying holographic displays that showed human operations across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Status report. Torres requested from his staff. Operation Vengeance is proceeding on schedule, reported Colonel Sarah Kim, who had been a city planner before the war. We've destroyed infrastructure on 47 Empire worlds. Water treatment, power generation, food distribution, medical facilities. Their civilian populations are starting to collapse faster than their military can respond. Torres nodded. The doctrine of proportional response had been his creation, born from cold mathematics rather than hot anger. For every human killed in the initial attack, 10 Empire citizens would die, not quickly in battle but slowly from disease, starvation, and despair. What about the Psychological Warfare Division? Torres asked. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now Director of Special Weapons Research, pulled up her own displays. The memory virus is exceeding expectations. Empire soldiers exposed to it are experiencing complete psychological breakdown within 72 hours. More importantly, it's spreading through their communication networks. We estimate that over 50 million Empire military personnel are now affected. The memory virus had been Elena's breakthrough, combining human understanding of neurology with captured Empire technology. Any alien who came into contact with the weapon would be forced to experience the death of every human they had killed or ordered killed. The effect was permanent and drove most victims insane within days. The best part, Elena continued with a cold smile, is that they can't stop it from spreading without shutting down their entire communication grid. Every message they send carries the infection to new targets. Torres turned to his intelligence chief, Commander James Chen, who had returned from his ground operations to coordinate the broader campaign. What's the Empire's response? Panic, Chen replied simply. 3 species have already declared neutrality and withdrawn from Imperial space. The crystalline houses are negotiating separate peace treaties. The void swimmers have abandoned their border territories entirely and are retreating to their core systems. Chen pulled up footage from recent operations. They're also starting to use our own tactics against us. Last week they deliberately destroyed a human colony ship with civilians aboard. But here's the thing, their own people are horrified by it. They're not built for this kind of warfare psychologically. Torres studied the intelligence reports with satisfaction. The Empire had been designed to maintain order through overwhelming technological superiority and economic pressure. They had protocols for everything except fighting an enemy that refused to surrender, and treated civilian casualties as acceptable losses. The prisoner exchange program is particularly effective, Chen continued. They keep trying to negotiate for their captured personnel. We keep sending them back in pieces with recordings of their final words begging us to stop the war. Commander Sarah Thompson, now Admiral of the Deep Space Fleet, appeared on the communication screen from her flagship. The Defiance had been upgraded with captured Empire technology and now commanded a fleet of submarines converted for space warfare. General, Thompson reported, we've successfully cut the supply lines between the Empire core worlds and their frontier colonies. 17 systems are now completely isolated. Food riots have started on 8 worlds. The economic damage is approaching irreversible levels. Any attempts at military response? Torres asked. They're still trying to fight us ship to ship, Thompson replied. But our new doctrine is working. When they destroy 10 of our vessels, we destroy 1 of theirs. The mathematics favor us because we can replace our losses faster than they can. The new doctrine was simple and brutal. Human ships were built to be destroyed. Every vessel was designed to inflict maximum damage while requiring minimal resources to construct. The crews were volunteers who understood they were trading their lives for strategic advantage. What's our current exchange ratio? Torres asked. 43 human ships destroyed for every Empire vessel we eliminate, Thompson replied. But each Empire ship costs them approximately 800 times more to build and crew than our ships cost us. Torres did the mathematics in his head. At current rates, the Empire would run out of ships and trained crews before humanity ran out of volunteers willing to die for revenge. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Alex Rivera, a former video game designer who had survived the bombing of Los Angeles, had been working on psychological warfare systems. He appeared on the communication screen looking exhausted but excited. General, we've cracked their entertainment networks, Rivera reported. Every Empire citizen watches educational programming that reinforces their peaceful society. I've been replacing their content with footage from Earth. Explain, Torres ordered. Picture this. An Empire family sits down to watch their evening educational program. Instead of lessons about galactic harmony, they see real footage of Mexico City burning. They see the death toll statistics. They see what their government did to start this war. Then they see what we're doing to their worlds in response. Rivera's eyes gleamed with an intensity that had become common among human survivors. The psychological impact is devastating. Their entire society is built on the belief that the Empire brings peace and prosperity. We're showing them the price of that peace. The effects were already visible in intelligence reports. Empire worlds were experiencing civil unrest as their populations began to question the actions taken in their name. Peace protests were breaking out across Imperial space, something that hadn't happened in over 800 years. High Coordinator Vextha was facing the collapse of everything it had worked to build. In emergency session after emergency session, the Galactic Council struggled to find a response to humanity's total war doctrine. The humans have introduced a concept we had successfully eliminated from galactic civilization, Vextha reported to the assembled delegates. They have made war profitable. Every attack they make strengthens their position while weakening ours. The representative of the Sage Confederacy raised a troubling point. Our psychic analysts report that human emotions are beginning to affect other species. Thoughts of revenge, of violence, of rejecting authority are spreading through populations that have been peaceful for centuries. This was perhaps humanity's most dangerous weapon, the simple idea that some things were worth fighting for, even if the cost was destruction of the existing order. We are receiving reports of sabotage on our own worlds, admitted the delegate from the Metal Brotherhood. Species that have been loyal Empire members for generations are suddenly questioning our authority. The economic reports were equally disturbing. The Empire's carefully managed resource allocation system was breaking down under the strain of total war. Worlds that had never needed to defend themselves were demanding military protection. Trade routes that had operated safely for centuries were now too dangerous to use. Most concerning of all, several Empire species were beginning to adopt human tactics. The peaceful ethereal collective had started building suicide ships. The logical crystalline houses had begun targeting civilian infrastructure in their own conflicts with neighboring species. The humans aren't just trying to defeat us, Vextha realized with growing horror. They're trying to destroy the very concept of civilized warfare. They want to drag the entire galaxy back to the age of total war. Fleet Admiral Corvash had been fighting humans for 2 years, and he was beginning to understand something that terrified him. They were learning faster than his forces could adapt. Every engagement taught them new tactics while his own crews grew more demoralized. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the humans have developed a new ship design. It appears to be specifically built to ram our vessels at high speed, while detonating antimatter warheads." Corvash studied the intelligence reports with growing unease. The new human ships were barely more than engines strapped to bombs, piloted by crews that had been trained for exactly one mission: destruction of Empire vessels at any cost. How many did they build? "Current estimates suggest over 10,000, the officer replied. "And they're producing more faster than we can destroy them." The mathematics were becoming impossible to ignore. The Empire had perhaps 3,000 ships in total, each one a masterpiece of engineering that required years to build and decades to properly crew. The humans were building crude weapons platforms faster than the Empire could count them. "Admiral," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet." It's different from their usual declarations. Corvash authorized the transmission. The face that appeared on screen was Admiral Zara Okafor, but she looked older, harder than she had at the beginning of the war. Behind her he could see the interior of what appeared to be a massive warship under construction. "Admiral Corvash," Okafor said, her voice carrying a note of satisfaction that chilled him. "I thought you should know that we've finished our preparations." "Preparations for what?" Corvash asked. Okafor smiled, and it was the most frightening expression Corvash had ever seen on any being's. Operation Nemesis began at exactly 0800 hours, Coordinated Universal Time, on the 3rd anniversary of the attack on Earth. Admiral Zara Okafor stood on the bridge of the massive warship Retribution, watching as humanity's final assault commenced simultaneously across 7 star systems. The ship around her was unlike anything humans had built before the war. The Retribution stretched for over 2 miles, constructed from the salvaged remains of destroyed Empire vessels, and powered by fusion reactors that pushed the boundaries of human engineering. It wasn't beautiful like Empire ships. It was something far more dangerous. It was effective. "All fleets report ready," announced Commander Sarah Thompson from her position at the tactical console. "Operation Nemesis is go." Okafor nodded grimly. 3 years of total war had led to this moment. Humanity had learned everything they could from captured Empire technology, built everything they could with Earth's remaining resources, and trained everyone who could hold a weapon for one final offensive. "Signal all ships," Okafor ordered. "This is for Earth." Across the galaxy, human fleets emerged from hyperspace around the 7 Empire homeworlds. The attack had been planned with mathematical precision by General Marcus Torres, using intelligence gathered by Master Sergeant James Chen's infiltration teams and weapons developed by Dr. Elena Vasquez's research division. The Empire homeworld of Dominion Prime was the primary target. The planet had never been attacked in its 1,000-year history. Its orbital defenses were designed to repel conventional military assaults, not the wave of suicide ships that now descended from every direction. Admiral Corvash watched from his command ship as 10,000 human vessels approached his homeworld. Each ship was crewed by volunteers who had lost everything. In the initial attack on Earth, they came not to conquer but to demonstrate that nowhere in the galaxy was safe from human retribution. Deploy all defensive platforms, Corvash ordered, but he already knew it wouldn't be enough. The humans had spent 3 years learning how to destroy everything the Empire valued. Now they were applying those lessons on a scale that defied rational military planning. The first wave of human ships struck the orbital defense grid with nuclear warheads and captured Empire weapons. The explosions lit up space around Dominion Prime like a deadly aurora. When the light faded, half the Empire's most powerful defensive systems were debris floating in space. The second wave targeted the planet's surface directly. Dr. Elena Vasquez had spent 3 years developing weapons specifically designed to terrorize civilized species. The payloads dropping toward Dominion Prime carried viruses that would contaminate water supplies, nanobots that would destroy communication networks, and worst of all, memory implants that would force every survivor to experience the last moments of every human killed in the initial attack. On the planet's surface, High Coordinator Vextha stood in the emergency command bunker beneath the Imperial Palace, watching the destruction of everything it had worked to build. The attacks weren't random violence. They were carefully calculated to destroy the Empire's ability to govern, while leaving the infrastructure intact for human use. Casualty reports, Vextha requested from its staff. Initial estimates suggest 2 billion dead in the first hour, reported the tactical coordinator, its forearms trembling with shock. The humans are targeting civilian population centers deliberately. This isn't military strategy, it's genocide. But Vextha understood something its subordinates didn't. This wasn't genocide. This was justice as humans understood it. The Empire had killed 3 billion humans in a single day to force submission. Now humanity was demonstrating what submission would have cost them. Across the galaxy, the other Empire homeworlds were experiencing similar assaults. The mathematical paradise of the crystalline houses was burning under concentrated human bombardment. The deep ocean cities of the void swimmers were being systematically poisoned. The psychic networks of the ethereal collective were being flooded with human memories of rage and loss. Commander James Chen led ground assault teams on the industrial world of Factorum 7, where the Empire manufactured most of its advanced technology. His soldiers moved through the alien cities with weapons that had been designed to cause maximum psychological impact. They broadcast recordings of Earth's destruction before destroying each facility, making sure the Empire's workers understood exactly why their civilization was ending. Remember the rules, Chen told his troops as they advanced through the alien factory districts. We're not here to kill everyone. We're here to make sure they never forget what happens when you attack humanity. The psychological warfare was perhaps more devastating than the physical attacks. Alex Rivera's teams had infiltrated the Empire's communication networks, replacing their carefully managed information systems with footage from the war. Every screen on every Empire world now showed the true cost of their 1,000-year peace, the destruction of any species that refused to submit. But the most important battle was taking place in Earth's solar system, where Admiral Sarah Thompson commanded humanity's defense against the Empire's final counterattack. Corvash had sent every remaining ship in the Imperial fleet in a desperate attempt to destroy Earth before humanity could complete its victory. They're coming in fast, Thompson reported from the bridge of the converted submarine Defiance. 200 Empire vessels, all of them heading straight for Earth. The space around Earth's moon had been transformed into a maze of weapon platforms, missile batteries, and automated defense systems, but more importantly, it was protected by something the Empire had never faced before: human defenders fighting for their actual home. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it was over, the Imperial fleet ceased to exist as an organized force. The cost was tremendous. Earth's orbital defenses were destroyed and over 500,000 human defenders had died in the fighting. But the Empire's ability to project military power beyond their core systems was broken forever. On Dominion Prime, Vextha made the decision that would end galactic civilization as it had existed for a millennium. In a communication broadcast to every human ship in the galaxy, the High Coordinator formally surrendered not just on behalf of the Empire, but on behalf of galactic civilization itself. "We yield," Vex the transmitted, its translated voice carrying harmonics of defeat that no galactic species had heard for over 1,000 years. "The Empire formally surrenders to humanity. The Galactic Council recognizes human sovereignty over all territories claimed by your forces. We request terms." Admiral Okafor's response was broadcast from the ruins of Mexico City, where she stood among monuments erected to the 3 billion humans who had died in the initial attack. Behind her, construction crews were building something the galaxy had never seen, a memorial that celebrated both the dead and the living who had avenged them. "The terms are simple," Okafor announced. "Complete dissolution of the Dominion Empire, reparations equal to the full economic output of all former Empire worlds for the next 50 years, recognition of humanity as the dominant species in this galaxy." She paused, looking directly into the camera with eyes that had seen 3 years of total war. "Most importantly, every species in this galaxy will remember what happened here. You attacked humanity expecting easy submission. Instead, you discovered what happens when you threaten a species that values freedom more than survival." The formal surrender ceremony took place exactly where the war had begun, in the ruins of Mexico City. Representatives from every former Empire species came to Earth to sign treaties that acknowledged humanity's victory. But the document they signed was more than a peace treaty. It was the end of one type of galactic civilization and the beginning of another. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood with the other human leaders as the alien delegates filed past to sign their surrender. 3 years earlier, she had been a scientist working on clean energy. Now she was one of the architects of humanity's victory, her weapons having broken the will of species that had ruled the galaxy for centuries. "Was it worth it?" asked General Torres, watching the aliens sign away everything their civilizations had built. Elena looked around at the ruins of the city where she had been born, then at the human survivors who had paid an unthinkable price for their freedom. Earth's population had dropped below 1 billion. Entire generations had been sacrificed for this victory. "Ask me in 100 years," she replied, "when human children are growing up free instead of as subjects of an alien empire." The ceremony concluded with Admiral Okafor's final statement, broadcast to every world in the galaxy. For 1,000 years, this galaxy knew peace through submission. Today begins a new era, peace through strength. Humanity offers friendship to those who respect our sovereignty and total destruction to anyone who threatens our freedom. As the alien delegates departed Earth, carrying news of humanity's victory back to their devastated homeworlds, the real work began. Humanity now controlled the largest empire in galactic history, won through 3 years of the most brutal warfare the galaxy had ever seen. Fleet Admiral Sarah Thompson, now appointed as the first Governor-General of the Terran Empire, established her headquarters in the ruins of Geneva.